to welcome you to the Assam Royal Global University, Guwahati, for the second plenary session of the 18th International and 54th Annual ELTAI Conference on Exploring Languages and Literatures for Evolving Pedagogical Practices, organized by English Language Teachers Association of India. Hosted jointly by the Department of English, Royal School of Languages, the Assam Royal Global University, and Sonapur College, Sonapur, Assam. This plenary session is a cornerstone of our conference, bringing together some of the most brilliant minds in the field to share their insights and experiences. Today, we will explore the topic ELT, from here to where, a subject that is both timely, crucial for the advancement of our pedagogical practices. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor Shresh Chaudhary, formerly Professor of English, IIT Madras, Darbhanga, Bihar. I request Sanya ma'am to felicitate Professor Chaudhary. And now I would like to introduce the moderator, Dr. Chumki Biswas, Associate Professor of English, TSEC, University of Mumbai. I request Chandni ma'am to felicitate Dr. Biswas. It's time to begin the session. I request the moderator and the speaker to come up on the stage. I'm handing the stage to the moderator. I hope you have a wonderful session.
Good morning, everyone. I would request everyone to settle down first, please. Okay, you have the rare privilege of listening to one of the most prolific educators, speakers today we have in India. So he is also the most modest person I've met so far because he said, Chumki, say only 2 sentences about me. The amount of things he has would take about half an hour to say, but I'm going to mention only 2 or 3 things which I feel you must know about him. He's dedicated half his lifetime, which is, I'm guessing, say around 60, 65 years, 30 years of his lifetime to IIT Madras, and he retired from there as a professor. He didn't stop his teaching career there. He continued to teach young school children right now in Bihar. He has a national award in journalism to his name, which is, again, something we need to applaud him for. And he's also a trustee for one of these public charitable trust funds, which is not aided by the government. And we definitely would appreciate people contributing to this trust fund because he is looking after the healthcare and education of a lot of people in Bihar. So that's what I'm going to say. And I'll hand over the stage to him. Please lend him your ears. It's going to be worth your while for the next 1 hour. Thank you. We welcome you, sir. Please come.
Thanks for that kind introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, the topic that is here before us this morning is a question that Professor Ilango asked me a few months ago. And he insisted that within the light of my limited experience, I should try and answer this question. So what I'm going to present to you is one teacher's view of the present and the future of English language teaching worldwide. Can I have the first slide there, please? There is a reason why these questions are worth asking. With a lot of changes happening in technology, in society, the world is shrinking, the needs are growing. More than anything else, the need for connecting with everyone else in the world is growing. And that also means that we need to learn and use a language that would take us to everyone from, as they say, Australia to Zaire or Australia to Venezuela. Technology has always influenced culture and society. Remember the times when book was introduced. Remember the time when the technology of writing was introduced. Remember the time when printing was introduced. Remember the time when computers and internet were introduced. Those, I think, everyone here is younger than I am, but many of us might remember when computers came in. All of us in India were against it. We said it would take jobs away, it would be monotonous. What would the students learn from this? But today, there is a computer in all our pockets. And there is more than one at all our homes. Some of these revolutions are unstoppable and for good. So there is a reason we need to ask ourselves if ELT would continue to be the way we know it. We just now know it as a lot of grammar, a lot of writing. We learn 4 kinds of writing: cursive block, cursive lowercase, print block, print lowercase, then how to write letters, essays, applications, notes. It's a whole lot of writing at the cost of every other skill, including reading, listening, and speaking. Shall we continue that way? Shall we have such a lot of grammar as we have today? Do we use that kind of grammar in Hindi, in Assamese, in Tamil, in Odia, in Maithili, in Bangla? Do we need so much? There are any number of questions staring into our face because the times are changing. And if we don't change, if we don't find answers to the changing needs, then not only we are going to become obsolete, we are also damaging the cause of the learners and the profession. So Ilango's questions, I hope everyone here knows Professor Ilango. If you don't, talk to me. I will tell you something uninteresting about him later. Okay, we have known each other for ages. So, That's it. Let's go to the next slide. Next, please. How is the situation now? The situation now is English on the one hand is required by everyone. You know, a boy does not take a bride if she doesn't speak English. A girl does not take a bridegroom if he doesn't speak English. But English continues to be, English has been made optional in curriculum in many state government schools and colleges. Look at this contradiction between politics and the real need. But you know, the wonderful thing history tells you is politicians have always made themselves redundant. People have survived and flourished in spite of them. Okay? Schools, I can't speak about some privileged schools. We have under 100 of them in India. But if you leave these 100 out, then according to statistics available on the internet, close to 80% of schools have no sports, no library, and this doesn't include, this is not only for government schools, this is also for the so-called public schools, English medium schools. They all have buildings, but no sports, no library, no computer system that can be accessed by students, and the worst, imagine having a world full of books in your pocket, and imagine being denied their use in the classroom, at home. You know, I am reminded of the time when my generation was growing up. We were told, don't use ballpoint pen. Banks should not accept checks signed in ballpoint pens. Earlier we were told, don't use fountain pens. You know, but change is inevitable. Today, if checks themselves are redundant, you hardly need anything. You hardly need to sign anything. You know, so you know, schools are there without any system of support worth the name. They only have building. We have lots and lots of learners now. Lots and lots of them. You know, the government statistics is 300 million coming from homes with no history of education. What does that mean? That doesn't mean challenge only for English. You can teach them some syntax. But you need language, you need content with language. What do you talk about in language? I teach now at my village, and you know, my village is a cluster of 14 villages. So I frequently ask children, you know, there's a lesson. The first unit says colors, and there's a picture of the rainbow. So I asked students one day, have you seen a rainbow? The class remained quiet, silent, but one boy raised his hand. I said, wonderful, have you seen a rainbow? Yes. So I asked him, where does it appear? The boy said, sometimes in the sky, sometimes also on the earth. I hope it comes to the earth. Okay? And it is not their fault, because the boys and girls I am teaching come from the families of cowherds, goat herds, who are illiterate, who have no time, and they have nothing called content. You ask them how many brothers Rama had, they don't know. You ask them, have you heard of India? Then one or two boys say, yes. Where? It happens in cricket. Okay? That is all they know. And I am talking of students who are about to pass matriculation, and thanks to Nitish Kumar and Lalu and other leaders of Bihar, they do pass matriculation. Okay? So, you know, they come, are they, you know, if we were to use a cliche, are they language starved? Not really. They have the other kind of language. They can rattle off 100,000 unspeakable words in one breath. But nobody has told them about things that they also ought to learn to be part of industry and quote-unquote civilized community. So the challenge is great. We also have a number of adult learners, you know, in at least in those 10 cities, Chennai, Bangalore, Bombay, Calcutta, Delhi, Noida, Gurgaon, Pune, etc. You know, if a lady knows saying thank you, please wait, later, now, some 200, 500 words of English, that she can get a job as tea lady in multinational companies, and she can bring home 20,000-30,000 rupees a month, which is much more than 5, 6, 10,000 she gets washing vessels in others' homes daily. But all she needs is a 500-word vocabulary in English. Have we done that? Are we not going to answer that? And then, India also exports English. I have the good luck to work at least with 3 companies who teach all over Southeast Asia, in Africa, and they make a hell of a lot of money. They also give me some money with which I run that village project. The point is pretty simple. The needs have changed. Okay? There are new learners. There, of course, are old learners there as well. But let's go to the next slide. This is, the weekend class in my village. All these young adults you see are between 16 and 19, and they come for the weekends to do a course in spoken English. I can teach them good morning, good evening very easily, but after that, so I need all your help. Anyone who can volunteer to teach them anything, I don't care what, is welcome. But let's move on. Go to the next slide, please. What is the situation with regard to teaching? The new teachers are mostly underqualified because of the government. If you insist on only trained teachers, India does not produce more than 100,000 trained teachers every year, and our need is for close to 1 million every year. And then the teacher training programs are so obsolete. You take 2 years or 4 years to do B.Ed, and we needed them in thousands every year. And these so-called public schools, which do not adhere to strictly defined standards, and their training colleges, I have had the bad luck to be part of one of them somewhere. All they are interested is in their fee, because they charge about 150,000, 200,000 rupees for fee, and those trainees think, if I lose 1 year's pay, I am going to join a school which will pay me 30,000-40,000 rupees, I will more than make up. So there is no training worth the name. The worst thing with India is not that politicians here are alleged to be corrupt. They are alleged to be corrupt everywhere. In India, people have gone corrupt. We know and we sustain this racket of, teacher training colleges and other colleges and universities which distribute certificates. One American philosopher called them degree mills. We are supporting those degree mills. But the situation also is that they are underpaid. Look at countries like Germany, Japan. The teachers are the highest paid people there. The German chancellor is on record having told others, please don't compare your salaries with the salary of a teacher, because a teacher is what we are, whatever we are, because of our teachers. And here, I will leave that question unanswered. And they are overworked. There is hardly a teacher who doesn't teach 20, 30 hours a week, and then they have to bring homework, examination work for no extra remuneration, not even a pen given to them by their colleges. What kind of quality work would you expect from them? So these are the things. This is the reality, the stark reality. We must change them. Luckily, there are new tools. If you want them to write an essay, ChatGPT can write for them. It can translate for them. It can answer questions in grammar. It can do poetry. It can compose poems. It can do a hell of a lot of things. So, the teacher and the students can both profit from them. We can take them as assets rather than as threats. I'll talk a little more about it a little later. But look at our changing needs. Do we need such a lot of writing any longer after ChatGPT? Because that can generate our letter. You want to write a letter to your wife telling her that you are unhappy and I will divorce you? The ChatGPT will generate a wonderful letter for you. Okay? Or you want to write a letter of love to a friend of either gender, and the ChatGPT leads to know if it's a boy or a girl you are writing, or unigender, or transgender, and the ChatGPT will produce an appropriate kind of letter. Okay? Once again, writing came in prominence only in the last 3 centuries. Until about 18th century, language teaching anywhere in the world was not so writing-centered. It was more speaking-centered. Everywhere, in Sanskrit, in Persian, in Greek, in teaching of Latin, French, English, Spanish, any language, emphasis was upon teaching speaking. But ever since print became popular, writing became the main medium of communication, postal services were invented, so there was great stress on correct spelling, correct punctuation mark. Remember that the first English dictionary that Oxford University produced came in 1916. Even before that, people were learning language. You could spell it any way you liked, as Google is doing it now, but not pronounce it anyway. Now there is overemphasis upon pronunciation of a certain kind. You make a slightest mistake in pronunciation and the computer will type it differently. I think those of us who watched the coronation of Charles III, the present King of England, must have noticed how BBC streamer went wrong when in place of REGINA, it wrote some other word which I cannot pronounce in public among civilized people. Similarly, we don't have to change everything, but that's the question we need to ask. What is it we must change? We have not asked ourselves that question yet. How much do we need to teach when we teach speaking or pronunciation? So to answer the question that Elango raised, we must ask ourselves another question. If we need to teach speaking, what is it in speaking we need to teach? Look at this word. Can anybody please tell me what is take a coffee? You have heard of cappuccino, latte, a standard Indian, a standard Americano. What is take? Anybody please, I will buy you a take. This is a coffee you get at Chennai airport, which, where the manager of the airport canteen tells his colleague that it's a takeaway coffee, pack it accordingly. So, takeaway shrinks to take a, right? Now, the business goes on, but just imagine if the person was able to say takeaway properly, how much more the business would grow, how much more maybe the loss. Now, similarly, what do you mean, what do you understand if I say go across the Kappa, CAPA? A CAPA is nothing, but it is car park, but we don't produce the last. So teaching some of these things is not difficult at all. The only problem is, are we aware of it? Have we given a thought to what we should teach? How long shall we go on complaining, or a curriculum does not allow me, syllabus does not allow you. Syllabus does not prevent you from doing it. You can do the entire syllabus slightly differently where you can take care of the new needs. The point is, do we ask ourselves these questions? Can you make out what is holding point? Those who are trainers in airport authority should keep quiet. Can others please guess what is this? This is from air traffic service. Some of us here, we must, I think ELTAI must feel proud of itself that earlier, before some members of ELTAI interfered, India used to send its air traffic controllers for training in civil aviation English to either Manchester or to Singapore or to New York. But some of us got together and we told the government of India, look, we are also around. You may not give us so many dollars, pay us in rupees, and we'll do it. And we are doing it. There are a lot of people here in this room who are part of that training team. And we found that, when we did that training, we found two things. Number one, there is somebody called God who really is there. God exists. If I told you how many accidents happen every day, perhaps you will stop flying. Near misses are very common. Some are reported, most are not. This is one of them. The traffic controller wants to tell the pilot hold on the holding point. But because he speaks rapidly, which is how most Indians do, the holding point becomes holding point. Now that Brazilian pilot still understands him. That Italian pilot still understands him. And that is when we recognize there has to be somebody called God somewhere to have given us that fault-tolerant computing system so that we understand these things. Similarly, hardly any air traffic controller distinguishes between 90 and 19, or the pilots for that matter. But they understand each other and they land on the correct runway, the correct taxiway, they go to the correct tarmac. What is that last word? In Gujarat, we do not say, our Prime Minister has taken courses in speaking, but in Gujarat, we don't say tomorrow, we say tomorrow. Now, when you say tomorrow, it is all right for us, but is it all right for your customer from Vietnam, from Nigeria? Now, IIT Madras has a campus in Nigeria. Many companies from India teach English in Africa, in Southeast Asia, including Taiwan, Vietnam, and in other countries, online. Lots of them working in China. An entire British Council operations in South Asia is run by a good number of members present here. Okay? We need to change. We need to recognize that, Shakespeare is wonderful. I teach Shakespeare. But do we ever bother to teach how Shakespeare spoke English? Shakespeare spoke, he was in theater. He was not, in script writing for films. He wrote for people to speak. Have we ever bothered to find out how that one soliloquy was spoken in Elizabethan times? We need to do that now. In other words, we need to rediscover, reinvent ourselves. Because service industry needs you. Service industry requires lots of English teachers. Okay, all Indian software companies exporting to the world outside, 20 billion plus in dollars, okay, can't do that business without English. English is the biggest business capital India has, and it leads, as President of China said, India could be the office and China could be the factory. Perhaps it will, or perhaps it already is. Similarly, consultancy firms needs you, and don't you think that English or language teaching is a marginal subject? How would computer recognize a word correctly? How would it distinguish between checks and sex unless it learned to distinguish between an affricate and a fricative, which is what only you can give them? So what we need to do is to have greater faith in ourselves, be a little arrogant, be a little more ambitious, but this is how ELT will have to become if it has to remain relevant. Otherwise, like healthcare industry in India, it will move over to the private hands and they will do it. Go to the next slide, please. How much grammar do we need? The sages said, do minimum essential. What is minimum essential? If you need to teach maid servants, some colleagues at IIIT Guwahati tried to do that in Guwahati. Some colleagues in Chennai have also done it with auto rickshaw drivers. What are those 500 words you will teach first? We haven't asked ourselves. We are all great scholars with PhDs and postdocs and papers to our credit, but we haven't asked these basic questions. Why Shakespeare's language continues to be used even today, whereas many other playwrights just disappeared? And if you've asked yourself that question, you will find that Shakespeare used lots and lots of monosyllabic words, to be or not to be. That is the question. Only question is bisyllabic in that entire 2 lines. Okay? Shakespeare was for people, but we must discover, we must ask ourselves relevant questions rather than academic questions buried only in books. So what is that minimum essential? What do we need to teach? Sentence grammar before phrases. English is a notorious language for word order. In India, we say son of Dasrath, but there it is the other way around, Dasrath of, sorry. In Hindi, in Assamese, in Bangla, in Tamil, we say Dashrath ka beta. But there, they say beta ka Dashrath, son of Dashrath. The word order is just the other way around. In phrases, and if you change the word order, the meaning can change. It will, because English is a fixed word order language, unlike Tamil, unlike Hindi, unlike many other Indian languages. In Indian languages, you can say Ram aam khata hai Ram. But in English, if you say mango eats Ram, then maybe semantically only Chomsky will accept it, nobody else will. Okay? So we need to teach word order. Maybe some agreement rules, but must we over insist on the same preposition, the same article, the same derivation? Should we not leave something for the context, something for the student to learn on their own as they move on? We have to ask these questions. Go on, next. More than grammatical correctness, social correctness is required. We hardly ever teach anybody to say, please. And as a result, even we, quote unquote, learned professors of English sound rude when we just go on tell the air hostess, give me a cup of tea, or give me a Coke, or give me a drink. Because she expects you to say, please. Remember this old, rhyme taught in nursery schools, hearts like doors will open with ease. I'm sure you know the rest of it. How can we teach it? There are no rules or there are rules. You can teach it best, placing it in context.
Hello.
And today,
I'm Mrs. Ada
you
Clump.
carry an entire library of
I
anything that you like in your classroom. If your college doesn't permit you to use mobile phones in the classroom, please convince your principal, your vice chancellor, your headmaster to let you do that, because you have the entire library there. Look at this clip for a minute. Can we play it? Is it possible?
Won't you sit down? Oh, thank you, my dear.
Can you
It was a
increase the
long walk
voice?
from that gate. You've got a little talking to do. I think you better lock that door. Well, I see you've done this sort of thing before.
Oh, yes, my dear.
But it's against the law. Why do you do it?
Well, you see, I'm a widow, and I have a married daughter in New York.
First time the contents may be incomprehensible to your students. They might not understand the accent. You can give subtitles and make them see it. And the simple question, the lady, the officer of the airport is rude, but the older lady is more polite, and she says, my dear, oh, you see, my dear. Why does she say my dear? Why does she say you see? English does not have, like Hindi and Tamil, baitho, baithiye, okay, ukara, ukarango. How does English express politeness? Simple, they don't say, sit down. They say, would you mind sitting down, please? Can you take a seat, please? Can you wait? The question sentence also becomes a request sentence in English. But we don't draw the attention of our students. And these classes can become much more interesting. This way you can teach them both listening and speaking, and you can also teach them what people these days call soft skill. Okay? So we really need to look at our materials afresh. Government textbook committees must be thanked for continuing in the 19th century. You cannot challenge them because you are neither a politician nor you have political connection. But you can convert those very lessons into spoken lessons, and students can enact, students can learn. All it requires is a little bit of imagination and maybe some intelligence. Move to the next. Teacher education. I have already told you about teacher education, how I feel. But I had the good luck to be on Government of India's Teacher Education Commission for about 2 years. And we looked at teacher education curriculum all over India, and we found Kerala had the best. And for one reason, in Kerala, there is peer group meeting frequently within the cluster of a panchayat every month, within the cluster of a district every 6 months, and at the state level once a year. Kerala government, no matter what you say against it, gets all teachers together, all interested teachers together, exchange of ideas. It gives them just, idiyappam and some coconut, no great food, no kit, no bag, but helps them find a stay in a hotel or some such place. And there's a wonderful exchange of ideas, 1 or 2 resource persons, 3 days, there is a lot of brainstorming. As a result, Kerala is the only state in India which gives its students a choice of 11 foreign languages, including German, Hebrew, Persian, Greek or Latin, Sanskrit, etc., etc. Of course, English and French as well. So we need tech-savvy teachers today. All of us have to relearn how we can use artificial intelligence and those, softwares driven by artificial intelligence. Some of us do already. Father Peter is a professor of that. Okay? There are others. So it must be ongoing, not 2 years at a stretch, maybe 2 months, and then again every week, every 6 months. Sorry, once a week, every 6 months. And then a lot of peer group interaction. We learn much more from that. We will be producing many more trained teachers than we do just now. Go to the next. Well, we don't have much time left. How much time do we have? Do we still have? How much time do we have?
About 10 minutes, sir.
Okay, lovely. That's great. Okay, so you can bring a lot of variety of material in the classroom. If you don't know about them yourselves, ask your colleagues. In my case, my resource person in this matter is Father Francis Peter. Once I requested him, Father, I want to play some songs to my students in my village. He sent me a list of 300 songs. I'll play one of them, 1 or 2 of them to you in a moment. Can you play this? Can you play that video? You see, very familiar song. There is also Hindi counterpart, Hum Honge Kamyab. There may be Bangla Tamil version as well. The point is, you first, when you begin this song, not all students understand you. Then it goes with subtitles. They understand, they listen, and then they sing along, and afterwards they sing it alone, without any help from anyone. And not only they learn the song, to that extent, they learn those words and that vocabulary. Go next. Go next. Okay, if we had internet and time, we could have done some more difficult, and students like these things, cat songs and dog songs. This is from T.S. Eliot, the book of Possum Cats. Okay, but maybe some other time. Go next. Okay. Tests. How long shall we go on doing 3-hour proctor test, boarding the student, and then later, checking, evaluating those papers on end? A lot of teachers have lost their sleep or acquired blood pressure because of those, fat script, examination scripts. The same conclusions can be reached in much shorter period of time. The British Council examinations happen in both writing and speaking. One is about 1 hour, the other is 15 minutes. Reading, listening is about 30 minutes each. And they reach all those correct conclusions about the proficiency of their students. All we need to do is to discover ourselves. I wish to tell you a story about that pearl of East Coast. Once earlier I used to teach at IIT Madras. So I asked my MTech students to write a short note on a civic problem in their city within certain words and give it to me by certain date. Those students are very computer savvy. They submitted their assignments within a certain date, printed, names written. I read the first assignment. It says, I am from Visakhapatnam. Visakhapatnam is the pearl of East Coast. It has 49 parks, but the level of suspended particulate matter is this. It gave a chart. I said, wonderful, great. Then I looked at the next It says, I am from Nellore. Nellore is the pearl of East Coast. It has 49 parks, and the level of suspended particulate matter is this. I was slightly worried. I thought, how could there be two pearls of East Coast? But everyone has a right to call themselves the best country in the world, like India does. So, I moved on. Then the next script said, I am from Warangal. Warangal is the pearl of East Coast. Now I know something about the geography of Andhra Pradesh, now Telangana. Warangal is not on the East Coast. But then I told myself, I am an English teacher. I am not a geography teacher. How does it matter if the spelling is close to correct? Finally, I reached Bulandshahr. You know where Bulandshahr is. And somebody said, Bulandshahr is located on the East Coast. It is the pearl of East Coast. It has 49 parks. What they had done is they thought English teacher after all was not going to read all this. So they generated one, changed the name up above, and submitted it to me. When I met the dean told them, you must punish them series. They must read Gandhi and submit an essay to you once again. I told the dean, please, don't use Gandhi for punishment. Moreover, they will again do the same thing. So I changed. I said, I gave them a chart and said, speak about it. And send me recording for 1 minute. There was no cheating there. Each voice is different. You have to produce, and only 1 minute given. Similarly for listening. A chart was spoken about, and I asked them to listen and answer questions. I'm not saying I am the smartest or the cleverest, but I'm trying to tell you, maybe this way lies our future. We have to rediscover. Tests need not be longer than half an hour, 1 hour. The students are no longer interested in those things. You have large numbers. How many scripts can you examine for no remuneration or no extra remuneration? Okay, next. Even literature can be tested this way. Try filling in these blanks. Very easy. The first is John's looks are good. His dress is formal. You know where this extract comes from. This is Bikram Seth, The Golden Gate, opening poem. Okay? John's looks are good. His dress is formal. His voice is low. His mind is, it must rhyme with around. And it must be an adjective. Sound. Great. Okay? So 10 on 10 to you. Actually, 10 on 8, because there are only 8 blanks. His appetite for works is abnormal. A plastic name tag. It must be a verb. And a verb that is only monosyllabic. And that had. So the verb is hangs. Only one. Actually, they can copy it. They can get it by heart. But if you ask them this question, why only this word? Even ChatGPT cannot help. Okay? The point I'm making is, all of us know these things. There is nothing new for us. Go on. Can we play that video? Please allow me to go a little off presentation and present to you a video on what we are trying to do in my own and other villages. And I'm inviting you to join me from no matter where you are. You can do that in the neighboring village, neighboring slum, because all of those children, Ilango and I worked for some time in the slums of Chennai, and we found that their need was as great as the need of rural school children. So many people really need it. Can you please go on? Can you please play? Voice? A class 5 child who is supposed to have studied English for about 5 years couldn't read a word of his textbook in English.
सरकारी स्कूल सब में क्या है बच्चे लोग.
This film was not made by me. Please bear with me. They show too many my lovely face too many times, but it was not. It was done at the behest of IIT Madras. They wanted to check if I was really doing something or I was, quote unquote, in the great Indian tradition, filling in forms only. So somebody came and made a film, and I thought my friends who fund me, we don't take anything from the government. It is many members of this group that also support me there. So I thought I would play it here. Please play.
ज़्यादा रहते हैं और टीचर कम रहते हैं तो उतने बच्चे पे ध्यान नहीं दे पाते हैं.
Government schools even today have the best of teachers. But for one reason or another, the government keeps calling them away from their duty. Census, up-to-date voters list. It's not a fault of teachers, so I thought we should do something. One day it so happened that I was passing by the office of somebody called Professor Nagarajan. He happened to be the Dean of Alumni Affairs at that time. And then he asked,
ladies and gentlemen, ELT is going to be relevant. So long as there is world and the world is shrinking, we need one language to connect with all else. That doesn't mean local languages will not be required. They will be required. Multilingualism, as we know it, is part of human design. God did not create us nothing but in his own image. He created us to be various, to prosper, and to look after other creatures as well. That also includes a lot of local languages. But places like India and Europe and China have always had 2 or 3 languages going on: local, regional, and global. Okay? The global language will continue to be relevant. We do not just now know which student will need English tomorrow, but the best strategy is we must teach and teach such that all students learn how to learn. That is where the future of ELT, in my opinion, lies. Thanks for the chance you gave me. I'm really grateful. Are there going to be any questions, etc.? Are there going to be questions?
You can sit and answer. You've been standing for a long time. I'll arrange
that's
the
fine.
chair.
Can't I go down?
Sit here if you have any questions.
Right. I can stand there.
Please switch it on for him.
Sorry, sir. It is there printed on the brochure, conference brochure. Shri Chaudhary, care of Professor K. Elango, and will. Professor Elango is part of the trust under which we are doing this rural and urban slum project, teaching English and computer science. And that's all. Father Francis Peter is our advisor. I will give you the website, etc. I think it is there. I wrote it, but I'll copy it to you. Okay, please. I'm looking for all of them, as many as you can see.
Right, so how do we get to that?
Well, that's a rail, train service, bus service, and there is also luckily now
I mean-
an airport.
I mean, not get there, get to that, get to the internship project itself.
Right, all they have to do is to, I can give you the address.
Yes,
It is
please.
there also, I began by saying I work at Panjani Center. So I will give you that address if you are interested, or it is there printed in the brochure. Write to me, mail me there,
Right.
or call me, and we will keep your students They don't have to pay anything for board and lodging, but I can't fly them. We don't have that kind of money yet.
Right.
So they can come by train or they can fly to the nearest airport is only 9 kilometers away.
Right. Thank you.
But we need you, we need your students, and not just in my village or in slums in those towns. Anywhere you think, one place where we are already doing it is my place, so I will welcome you.
Professor, may I?
Please, I can't see you, but please go on.
I am your left-hand side, maybe.
Right.
So
Professor
basically,
Pradhan, yeah.
thank you
Professor
very
Pradhan
much
from
for
Bangladesh.
recognizing me.
Yeah.
Basically, when I saw your topic, ELT from here to where, I have many questions. I have had many questions in my mind. Okay, because I was thinking that I will ask this or that type questions. But I was truly mesmerized with your presentation and your ideas. You are aged physically, but mentally you are so much teenagers.
Oh God.
Okay. In a sense that
Thank you.
ChatGPT still, we have many doubts among young teachers, okay, whether it has bad side. Basically, we are talking its bad side, that you have already mentioned several references, invention of computer, printing, so what happened initially. But still we, we young teachers, we are not ready to accept this one. Okay. But you, physically aged, but mentally, again I say that, so teenage. Okay. That you have already explained beautifully before us. What would be? Okay. How can we humanize this one with our mind and physics? This one, so I don't have any questions, but my queries that were, having seen the title, I have absolutely fulfilled with your presentation and speech. But I hope I will visit your school one day. Okay, and I try to communicate with you in what can I do, these types of things in Bangladesh. It would be really true that in Bangladesh we also need these types of things in rural area, because we had a chat during coming from Calcutta, but I did not recognize you over there. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. May you become the president of Bangladesh.
Thank you, sir, so much. In the interest of time, we would like to take more questions. However, the next session has to start. So I'll take this opportunity to thank Professor Chaudhary. I must say I'm in love with him, and I believe everyone sitting in this room is in love with him. So one thing that I want to say is that he is one gutsy speaker, and we all need to grow a backbone if you're going to be standing here and talking, because I believe he's one of the first few speakers I heard who said that let the politicians do their job and let us do our job. Do not mix the two. They don't go together, okay? And the other thing he said is that there cannot be any output without input. So pay attention to listening and speaking. We need to improve the quality of teachers, and do not just distribute certificates for the sake of distributing certificates. You need to earn that. And the last thing, and the one thing that I want to say, 30 seconds, is that he is a storyteller. He came here without a script, and all of us need to learn how to engage the audience. Even at his age, he had an embedded video in his slides. I was like totally impressed. We all need to become storytellers in order to reach the goal that we are planning to reach. Thank you so much, Professor Chaudhary. You're everything that you did not advertise yourself about. You're everything. You're everything. Thank you so much. Big clap for him.
So kind.
Thank you for that thought-provoking and enlightening session. Your insights have certainly provided us with much to ponder and discuss. As we conclude this plenary session, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to our speaker and the moderator for their invaluable contribution and to all the participants for your active participation. We hope this session has inspired new ideas and perspective. I request everyone to be seated as we move on to the next part of our conference, the panel discussion. The title of the panel discussion is Voices of the Northeast, Exploring Identity, Culture, and Belonging to Literature, Journalism, and Art. Thank you once again for being here. Enjoy the rest of the conference and have a wonderful day.
हेलो
Hello, hello. Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
ঠিক আছে ক্র্যাক হয়েছে আওয়াজটো একটু এটা ইস্যু আছে কি স্যার
चल रहा है
पापा वो जो मेन कॉर्डन है उसको पूरा चाहिए
ये हमारे साथ ले ले ये वो बच्चा इसके ऑडियंस के लिए अच्छा ये पास करता
मिक्स एंड मैच में सारे लाइक इट्स लाइक अ वुमेन ऑन वन साइड एंड मेन ऑन वन साइड ऐसे
Yes, yes.
mix in like one man one ऐसे
No, they're all speakers. You have to take it off. Come on, angle at up level.
ऐसे वो कर रहा है बट बीच में डिस्टर्ब हेलो
हेलो हेलो हेलो हेलो
माइक ऑन कर दे एक बार चेक कर ले हाँ पहले
हेलो
ये तो वो वाला है অনেকে নেই इसको इधर नहीं इसको इधर
Hello. Good morning, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, moderator, delegates, and all the members present here. On behalf of the Assam Royal Global University, I Good morning, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, moderator, delegates, and all the members present here. On behalf of the Assam Royal Global University, I, Dipangshi Sahoria, take this opportunity to welcome you all to the panel discussion on the 18th International and 54th Annual English Language Teachers Association of India Conference on exploring languages and literatures for evolving pedagogical practices, organized by the English Language Teachers Association of India, hosted jointly by the Department of English, Royal School of Language, Royal Global University, and Sonapur College, Sonapur, Assam. This topic of today's panel discussion is Voices of the Northeast, exploring identity, culture, and belonging through literature, journalism, and art. This panel discussion brings together prominent literary figures and cultural commentators from Northeast India to explore the intricate narratives emerging from this diverse region. through literature, the panelists will examine how identity is shaped by the region's unique blend of cultures, histories, and traditions, while also addressing contemporary challenges. I would now like to introduce the moderator and speakers of this session. Our moderator for today is Mr. Mrinal Talukdar, author, veteran journalist, talk show host, and two-time ENBA awardee. May I now invite Professor Indrani Singh Rai, Dean of the Royal School of Languages, to please felicitate our moderator with a Fulam Gamusa, a memento, and a sapling. Mr. Mrinal Talukdar is the consulting editor of Protein Time. He is a senior journalist with over 35 years of experience in the Northeast region and a two-time ENBA award winner. We are truly honored and privileged to have you amongst us today, sir. May I now invite our moderator to please join us on the stage. Please give a big round of applause for our moderator for this session. Our panelists for today boast Ms. Rashmi Narzari, author, independent editor, and a Sahitya Academy awardee. May I request Professor Tushti Sharma, Head of Department of English, to please felicitate our panelist with a Fulam Gamusa, a memento, and a sapling. Ms. Rashmi Narzari is an author and independent editor who has been conferred with the Sahitya Academy for Children's Literature in 2016 and the Prag Prerana Award for Literature in 2020. Her debut novel, Bloodstone, Legend of the Last Engraving, is a highly acclaimed work that has inspired research papers on gender studies. May I request our panelists to please join us on the stage. Please give a big round of applause for our panelists. We also have amongst us Mr. Madhu Raghavendra, poet, artist, curator, and a Charles Wallace Fellow. I request Madam Sania Wahid, Assistant Professor of the Department of English, to please felicitate our panelist with a Fulam Gamusa, a memento, and a sapling. Mr. Madhu Raghavendra is a poet, artist, and curator who has authored 4 books of poetry and is a fellow of the Charles Whiting Fellowship Program, University of Iowa, and the Charles Darling Fellowship. May I request our panelists to please welcome us on the stage. We also have amongst us Mr. Sushanta Talukdar, editor formerly for The Hindu and currently for Nezin. May I request Madam Sania Wahid, Assistant Professor of Department of English, to please felicitate our panelist. Mr. Sushanta Talukdar has 32 years of experience of covering India's Northeast region for regional and national dailies. Formerly a senior assistant editor of The Hindu, he currently edits Nezin, an online magazine on Northeast. May I request our panelists to please join us on the stage. We have Dr. Moushumi Kandali, author and art critic, Assistant Professor, Department of Cultural Studies, Tezpur Central University, Tezpur, Assam. May I request Madam Rupankana Sharma, Assistant Professor from the Department of English, to please felicitate our guest. Dr. Moushumi Kandali is an accomplished author, art critic, and assistant professor at the Department of Cultural Studies, Tezpur University, and has contributed extensively to Assamese and English literary landscapes. May I request our panelists to please join us on the stage. We have Dr. Teresino Keditsu, a poet, academic and cultural conservationist, Assistant Professor of English, Kohima College. I request Madam Rupankana Sharma, Assistant Professor of Department of English, to please felicitate our guest. Dr. Teresino Keditsu is a poet, public intellectual educator, cultural conservationist and fashion icon who advocates for the revival of indigenous Naga textiles and women's narratives through her popular Instagram avatar @Mekhela Mama. She is widely credited with single-handedly inspiring initiatives to wear. May I request our panelists to please join us on the stage. Please give a round of applause for the speakers of today's session. Thank you. Now, with due respect, I would like to invite our esteemed moderator, sir, to kindly take over the proceedings of this session.
Thank you, madam. And I think we can safely say it's a good afternoon. I am actually an odd man out in this room with so many people from literature, English and everything. I'm a full-time, hardcore political animal. My last night, I had a fair round with Kiran Rijiju, and those who had seen had warned me not to be grilling them in that. I am going to not do that. My previous guest was Sachin Pilot. So you can imagine right from that, and I'm now here with the literature, art, and history and identity. I promise I try to be as simple as soft because this is not my day-to-day topic. My request to all of you to keep the answers to ideally around 2 minutes so that we can have more rounds and the number of questions we can discuss issues and audience also appreciate that. My first question was issue is open to everybody and everybody are allowed to speak about 1 and 1.5 minutes. Is on that North is often seen through a narrow lens of its mainstream narrative. How do you think literature, journalism, and the art from the region can challenge and disrupt this stereotype, and are we doing actually enough? Should I repeat it? The North is often seen through a narrow lens of mainstream narrative. How do you think literature, journalism, and art from the region can challenge and disrupt these stereotypes, and are we doing enough? Let's start with Madhu.
Okay, you choose poet because maybe brevity is a specialty maybe. But when I, from a very personalized self-sense, look at the whole idea of being an outsider, being this region, but again, at the same time, that's the label that other people put on you. But when you are looking at it, you are looking at it from a sense of artists and the self being a rivulet in the river. So you become a rivulet in the city everywhere. And when you look at the whole narrative of how people are very across, mainstream India, if I'm still putting that label onto the space, is that, so I did a poetry reading where I was like, I took up, this was during COVID, and I think Dibru Saikhowa or one of those places were burning, and Bagjan, I think. Bagjan. And then I read a poem, but they were like, we can't hear you. It was an online thing. We can't hear you. There's a technical glitch. I said, no, I read the poem, but you couldn't hear, but because I'm reading from the Northeast. So there's a because the Bagjan was almost not reported, and during COVID.
You can just put the mic a little closer to you.
Yeah, so Bagjan was not at all reported that there was almost 15, 20 days, almost a month of fire there. And when I saw that it was a sense of social injustice for me. And when I was doing my own readings, I brought that sort of activism into my reading, that I read a poem, but read it silently in a way that when people were looking at screen, they thought that there was a technical glitch. But I said that no, it was not a technical glitch, but the idea that I'm reading from the Northeast is that's why the poem is not reaching you. And the poem was on Bagjan. So things like that. So for me, that sort of comes through art. When I'm looking at art and media houses in the region, it's always like a Northeast typical branding. All of us here would agree that all the literature festivals we go to, there's a Northeast, like, oh, this is Northeast reading. And what is Northeast? Like, is it a one entity? I think all the other speakers can take that up. Is Northeast even one identity?
Sometimes I do think that the very word Northeast is a misnomer.
Absolutely.
And Northeast of what? Is Delhi from Delhi? It's Northeast, not from Tinsukia.
Exactly.
The perspective changes from the places where you are. Can you pass on to microphone to Rasmi? Same thing.
Same question. Thank you.
This opening round, everybody a common thing.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. Now, at the moment we term the coin Northeast literature, it shows that we are being taken note of. And also, the moment we say Northeast literature, that means we are Northeast of something. That means there is a yearning for us, in us, to belong to a whole. And also, that whole is taking note of us, which is why they have given us the slot Northeast literature. And it is actually wonderful to see categories all over, wherever, that Northeast poets, Northeast literature, having an entirely different set of ranking. That means we have put our place firmly into the whole. And later on, as we discuss, we will see that Northeast is being taken as one homogeneity, but within that homogeneity, we have distinct identity markers. And also, when we talk of Northeast literature, it is because we don't see anywhere else, we don't see South Indian literature, we don't see Western literature. That means there is a power in our literature, in our voice, which is why in the whole country, in the whole world, there is Northeast Indian literature. I think we have already put our mark across, and we have faced their challenge, and we're doing pretty well. And the exploration continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosmi. Dr. K. Dichu. There is one microphone there and one. It's there. It's on, probably.
I think, Madhu and Rashmi have already shed a lot of light on your question. The only thing perhaps I could add is I think we're in the cusp of a new kind of creative era for the Northeast as a whole, even if I am personally very allergic to using the category Northeast myself. Your question was about how mainstream narratives look at Northeast writing, film, I think journalism, art, through a very narrow lens. And my response would be that now in the Northeast, we are not, somebody else is not carrying the camera. We have our own camera. We are looking at ourselves. And I think that is what is, what I find is very distinctive about the writing and the literature and the art that is coming out of the Northeast now. The new writing is we are looking at ourselves at our own terms. We are not trying to pander to some outsider gaze. We are engaging in dialogues and forging solidarities amongst ourselves. And I think that's what's very exciting about being a writer from the Northeast at the moment.
Yes, I do agree with that view. Sushanto, would you like to add something to this? And then followed by Moshomi. It's on probably.
Thank you, Meena. Thank you, my co-panelist. Well, I look at this question in this way. Like when you say, you look at it Northeast, and we have also started looking at North India, South India, Western India. North Indian dishes, North Indian food habits, North Indian languages, South Indian language, South Indian food culture. So when you were trapping us in a fixed boundary framework, Northeast, so the result is that we have also started looking at the region like this. Thank you.
Brilliant answer. By the way, Northeast has got a new competitive name. It's called Eastern Himalaya. I have kept on getting this kind of new nomenclature. Yeah, Moshomi, is microphone, pick it up and give your opinion on the Maya. Take this. Give me that.
Okay, everybody has already said. I see it, what I was staying outside Assam for quite some time and then coming back. I see it a very dicey. At times it is a very beautiful metaphor where we can say, look at yourself as a very, with a shared history, shared experiences. But then you also are aware that you are being looked at with a certain gauge. And as Sushanta has pointed out, now we are confident enough, and also Keditsu has pointed out, we are also reverting our gauge. So categories are made, stereotypes are made. At times, when you have to contest a hegemonic power, sometimes you need to cater to that kind of, but at the same time have the self-criticism or auto-criticism to understand why these stereotypes are made, why these categories are made. Are we comfortable? Is it a homogenized site? Or are we talking about multiplicity, heterogeneity? So I think we can use it both sides. But one thing is certain, now we see it from our, as she has pointed out, I totally agree with that. We can handle it now. We have our own notion, we have the confidence, and of course we are not driven by the stereotype. And as Madhu has said, your question was very important. There was one sentence that how we are challenging it. There are many things that we have already challenged it, especially in the fine arts or other literary expressions.
Thank you, Vibhadita. My next, again, open question is that identity in the North is a very complex, shaped by multiple ethnicities, language, and histories. How does the constant negotiation of identity in your work reflect the ongoing struggles of belonging in a region that is often marginalized as national discourse? Rasmi, you can start with your things. You have a Mekalamama holds kahani on the whole things, and Rasmi, is your turn, because I think your last novel is on that only. No, Bloodstone was in the first one. The Borrow Tales is the last one.
The book,
yeah?
Yes,
yeah.
That was the last one. Yes.
Tales of Borrow.
Thank you, Mrinal, for that. Now, this is actually a very complicated thing, because I face this complication very often, and now I am put the question about nationality and all, but before I go into the national scenario, I take this into the state scenario. I am from Assam, but I am not an Assamese in the technical term of it. Moi mekhela sador pindhu, moi bihu palon koru, ghorat pitha pranaliu bonai. At the same time, technically, when I have my voter's card, when I have my Aadhaar card, I am a Boro. So, staying in Assam, I'm not an Assamese. In the greater term of it, yes, I am. I belong to Assam. I am a Boro. Now, the question is, can I please get it once more?
Yeah.
The identity.
Because I would love to add on that also.
Yes. So the identity, I think, is two-pronged. Individual and community. In the individual, I am differentiating myself from my community in my belief, in my sense of dressing, in my faith, in my food preferences, in the language I feel most comfortable in. I am very, very comfortable in English. Next to it, I'm very comfortable in Ohomia. Moi likhu porhu, moi Ohomia translate korisu. Dr. Bhabendranath Hoikia moi translate korisu. And I can speak Boro, I can read Boro, but when it comes to very fine writing in Boro, I have a regret. But I'm still learning. So that is where identity comes as two-pronged. This is my individual identity. But when it comes to my community identity, I am still a Boro. And later on, I think we will talk about it when we talk about homogeneity and the individual identity marker within that homogeneity when it comes to Northeast clustered as a whole. But within that cluster, we are a whole, innumerable individual communities. We will come to it.
This whole question of identity is very, very complex. I'm an Asian, I'm an Indian, I'm an Assamese, then I'm from Lower Assam, then I'm from Guwahati, then from Chanmari, then I'm collegiate. Both of us have a different identity of collegiate, 84 batch, to hundreds of different identities. It's very, very complex. Anyway, Dr. Kedicho, I want to have a reply on this question of this. How does the constant negotiation of identity in your work reflect the ongoing struggles of belongings?
I think this is very interesting because, in academics, we don't talk about identity as a single thing. These days, the word that we use is intersectionality, and I think particularly here, when you're a writer from the Northeast, that's why I'm so allergic to Northeast, the term category, is in a sense, when we think about the Northeast as a category or writing from the perspective of the Northeast, we are also adopting, or perhaps we are perpetuating, a certain way of thinking that very much reproduces colonial ways of framing and looking at people, at narratives, at representation. And I think to decolonize is also then to be very specific, to be very open and reflexive about what kind of intersections we inhabit as writers, as journalists, as artists. And in this sense, I'm always very conscious and specific about speaking as a Naga. But when you speak as a Naga as well, just as much as Rashmi has revealed all her different intersections, what is a Naga? There is no such thing as a Naga. You know, when you break it down, you're very specific, you know, different kinds of markers. And so in that sense, we need to, I think, when it comes to creating or representing, we need to come to terms with the idea of subalternity, not as a kind of monolithic category, but subalternity as something that is very much, you know, existing and something that informs our creative processes as well. So even as a Naga, since I'm Angami and Sumi, I'm from the forward Naga tribes, by which, you know, I have certain kind of generational privileges, certain kinds of, you know, generational advantages versus somebody from a backward tribe, etc. So many things. As a woman, as somebody from certain professions, class, we have to think of all of these things because, you know, traditionally, all of us like to think that maybe, I mean, of course, colonial writing has romanticized most of Northeast societies as societies that are without hierarchy, you know, isn't it? You know, we come with that kind of brainwashing through our education. And it's only when we learn, you know, when we start studying Marxism, when we start, you know, learning about socialism, we suddenly realize, my God, class is very much, you know, hierarchies exist, class is very much. And now as we progress into modernity and as capitalism entrenches itself more deeply into every single aspect of our lives, how can we not, you know, encounter or think about something like class? So I think when we think about identity, it's not just a creative process. I think it becomes the responsibility of writers, of journalists, of artists to really disrupt the idea of a monolithic Northeast identity, to disrupt the idea of even a state identity, you know, and to really look at the various intersections that give us who we are. Because at the end, if we look at each of us, if we talk, when we meet from the Northeast, if we meet each other and we really seriously, honestly talk about ourselves, what a beautiful mix we are. And I think that beauty is something that we must put forth in our creative work.
Thank you, Dr. Gedich. So, Sushanta.
Dr. Kedichu has, and Dr. and Narjari also has explained it in detail. For me, Northeast, when I talk about identity as a journalist, you know, then I stop wearing any identity tag on me. Because the problem I wear an identity tag, then I get into the idea of exclusion. I belong to this identity, and I start talking about my perspectives and their perspectives. I get into the debate of us and them. So as a journalist, I don't wear any identity tag because I have to, now when I report on the interstate boundary conflict between Assam and Nagaland, I can no longer be an Assamese journalist. I can neither be a Naga journalist. I have to be a journalist to carry both the perspectives. But then at the same time, when we talk about, yes, literature, art, on everything that's coming up in Northeast, journalism, all that Dr. Kedichu has started contesting the colonial percepts, colonial concept of identity in the region. We also have to look into, now we have, I have realized, we also need to talk about the complexities arising from the overlapping identity in relation to, because these identities are also asserted in respect to a territory. geographic territory. And these territories are overlapping. Now, Bodos are demanding the statehood for the same areas which the Kamtapuris are demanding. We have seen what the territories about Manipur in Nagaland, Kukizos and the Meiteis, and similarly in Nagaland and Assam. So the ethno-nationalist assertion in respect to territory, that makes the identity issue much more complex, which needs to be decoded more. Thank you.
Mosumi, would you like to add something to it? Mosumi? And then Madhu.
No, as Shushantoda has said, it's a very complex thing, and I think it's a fluid thing. And also, constantly, I think individually, each of us, even being an Indian and also someone from Northeast, the category Northeast, we have to constantly negotiate it. When I go for a lit fest in Delhi, then I wear any wrapper from all over Northeast. I'm just giving from my own position. Today I'm wearing mekhela sadar, including a bindi. It has a gendered implication also. So how many, I mean, like you are balancing a lot of, you know, as if you are playing, you know, like a jugger, you are playing so many balls of identities, these, that. Then what, that's why in one of my short stories, I wrote, Maya Biti Rotabur, the Black Magic Women, I said, Aru Kimandin Atmo Poricitir Buja Kandhot Loi Purim, Bokha Bondhoni, Dorezodi Rati Dolia Pelabo Pariluetan. Wish we could throw away, like the braziers that we throw away before sleeping at night, this whole burden of identity. But then I also know, I'll make it short, that this is the center stage. Identity issue is the center stage where the whole drama is played, the theater is manifested, theater is unfolded, where you have a multi-ethnic, multilingual, multicultural, geopolitical side, like India or Northeast. So you have to play it. That's why I wrote The Black Magic Woman, which was published by Penguin in 2022, where I talked about marginalization or certain kind of othering of the Northeast indigenous women. So you have to keep negotiating, playing it, but as we have pointed out, yes, at certain point you have to stand as what you are, but there is also the individual point to it, because I feel more like a Karbi, being born and brought up in Karbi Anglong. I love to wear Pini Peacock more. So there are so many facets. I think each of us, we have multiple identity within us, and as a writer, I am still evolving, still thinking. And
I love that, because I hope one day there will be we do not have to carry these politically correct things.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I really love this answer. Madhu, I think you have already opened a book. There is a poem
Yes,
on that.
absolutely. I mean, there's a famous quote that a poet's work is his poetry, everything else is a end note. So I'm doing too much end note, I guess. But at the same time, when I look at identity, I think for the construction of my self has been through a confluence of, organic confluence of, like a cosmic organic confluence, because I didn't run after it, but it normally came to me. And I will read the poem for the sheer fact that a very contemporary, credible critic in Kerala, whom I won't name, said this poem was, the poet fantasizes all these identities in a way. And I was like, no, absolutely not. There is. Because, so being a Tanjore Maharashtrian, born and brought up in Calcutta, so when people say, oh, you're Maharashtrian, I'm like, no, culturally I'm Bong, you know, like, and then, now I'm here. It's been, so I'm like, simple. For me as an artist, it's a very, like, it's like a rivulet.
Simple as that.
As simple as that, you know. And I think India is a very culturally diverse country with a lack of cultural competency. I mean, and because the education system doesn't teach, like oh, tribals, oh, hunter gatherers, foragers, नहीं veg भी हैं. आप टोडा ट्राइब में देखोगे शायद तो वेज मिलेंगे आपको साउथ में. Oh, टोडा बोल के भी एक ट्राइब है. Like, yeah, because education system is not giving that. And so, you know, the whole idea that, anyway, so the poem is called Biodata, and I'm going to speak metaphorically because I have to do justice to being a poet. Yeah. So you can take what you want from it. Biodata. A Tanjore Maharashtrian, born on the Hooghly, calmed to my Avva's Kannadiga lullaby, soaked in sambar and rasam, served day after day with begun and aloo bhaja. I speak nomadic of my ancestors. Marathi from where they migrated, Tamil from where they settled, Kannada from porous borders, Bengali from the softness of the Ganga clay, English from the convent where I schooled, reciting Hanuman Chalisa at the school's chapel, waking to MS Subbalakshmi's Suprabhatam, finding peace in the wealth of Mehboob-e Ilahi, in love with a Galo girl from Arunachal, where the shadows of the clouds rest on mountains and the Yomgo and the Siang fall in love. Who speaks better Telugu than my mother? Sings ghazals like Penaz Masani and loves Ghalib like Purani Dilli ever did. I have no belongings. Poetry is all I'll ever need.
What a fantastic. It's almost a goosebump kind of a thing. Fantastic. It was too much for me.
Yeah, so English critic said that, oh, the poet assumes these identities. I'm like, no, I live it every day.
So immediately my next question will be on the, we all, many artists and writers, when an artist often face a dilemma of creating for a local versus national and global audience. How do you navigate the tension this time? Do you think that there is a risk of diluting the essence of the region when catering to a wider audience? Starting from Kamaikya, you can state, Rasmi?
I have a quick, I already have an answer.
Yeah, good.
Personally, for me, I don't cater to any other audience except the local one. You know, for me, I think that's a very political choice, whether it's publishing through local publishers, writing for, I only think, will a Naga person, will somebody from Nagaland understand this? By chance, if somebody else understands it, well and good, because in a sense, literature is universal, but I don't put that onus on myself as a writer or as a poet. I write specifically for the Naga person.
I second it. Almost except my two books, all my major popular books are in Assamese. I don't write in any other language. Yes, I have written in English, but that people said, why don't you translate? It's somebody else's business. It's not my business. Even if it's Motom or in 1962, Siasen, everything, Sangpo. Anyway, Rashmi, both of us are on the same page. I hope you were on the other side.
Thank you for that. And okay, my target audience is again not my local Ocomia, but somewhere the national audience, the national readership or the international readership. I just tell my stories. And my target audience is categorized in their age because I write for children as well. So I just target the age group because I have children, and as my children grew, I think my stories also grew with them. So I know what kind of stories are really loved by what kind of age group. So that is my target audience. I just tell my stories, and whoever takes it in however way. I love it myself, so the rest I leave it to my audience. Yes, I look at the age group. Yes.
Madhu?
I absolutely write for myself. There's no other person I would write for. And the world, because I think the personal is political to the core. And I keep every day trying to, that quote, that no man bathes in the same river twice. So because every day I'm evolving and constantly changing and finding a new self and acting like a bhairupia to myself. So I kind of wake up and put new stuff. And then also once in a while wake up and crib that nobody reads poetry, but that's not what it's meant to be. I think it's I say that poetry is a posthumous game. So I'm sure you're going to read after I'm gone. So that's fine with me. But there's also a fun poem I was trying to look that all these festivals going on, at times you're overwhelmed. And sir, you read my poetry. You invite me, I invite you. Sir, have you read my poetry? Fuck, no clue.
May I please add something quickly? I'll just take 1 minute. Yeah, just in case it goes beyond the people who would understand my stories, I am apt to adding a prologue to my books. Whether it was, like you said, Bloodstone, Legend of the Last Engraving, which is about the Kamakhya. So there might be a particular readership who might not know about the Kamakhya. So I have a prelude to it. And even
Don't say much about it, because I have a question on that.
Oh my God. All right, all right. And
I
then
have reserved a question on that book.
all right.
Yeah.
I'm getting nervous once
No,
again.
no, no. Anyway, don't
And
be
then
sorry.
even for my latest book, which is Whistles of the Sifung. Sifung is the flute, bahi in Boro. So there also I have added a prelude. So that is for the general understanding. But otherwise, it is all for the age group. Thank you for giving me that extra time.
Moshami, it's your turn. And there is a microphone there.
Yeah, when I write short stories, I have published 5 books, I write in Assamese. But that doesn't mean that I just think about what the Assamese people will like or anything. It is not. Whatever I see around and whatever intrigues me, I write about it. Because long time back, I had written a story called Tritiyottor Golpo, Tale of Thirdness, which became little like, are there any characters like, it was about a gay protagonist. So there were a lot of questions. In Assamese Samajot enekwa dhoroner dekha najay. So, but later on, I was so happy that nowadays you see, a lot of people are coming out of closet. So
Talking about third gender.
third gender, yeah, transgender, third gender. It was about
Normal now.
Normal now. So it was written 15 years ago,
No,
and
that was not normal.
so that's what I was not bothered about what people will think or like that. So I write in Assamese because I think in Assamese and it comes beautifully when I write it. But as for writing academic, of course, all of us we do it in English. We have to do it to get API score, I think. But also beyond that, beyond APIs
Thank God
and
you
all,
were mentioning about the great APS score.
beyond APIs and all, I also deliberately write it in English because when I write about the visual artist of Northeast, I think that people should know, a greater outreach should be there. So I make it that, yes, of course I should write in English. So when, as a creative writer, I am not bothered about the themes or anything. That comes to my mind. I have written about many issues that inflicted Assamese society or any society for a change. But I write it. Basically, finally, actually, it is my own negotiation, mediation, understanding the world around, looking at it through my own writing. So that way, yes.
We do not, both you and me are not controlled and guided by the great API. So you have the full liberty of answering it. Sorry for mentioning that. I know you people are not happy with that word.
Well, I'm a professional journalist, so I have to cater to my audience. It can be local, it can be national, it can be global audience. But I make it sure that my facts remain same. When I have catered to different audience, I just have to enlarge the canvas with more some backgrounding and contextualization. Otherwise, it will be, will leave the readers confused if I don't add other information, additional information. So when I write for the local audience, facts same. I just bring more the local context and all. But when I have to, so I'm conscious about my readership because that's, as a professional journalist, I have to do that. And now in the days of digital media, you have to, wherever you write for digital media, we have to think of the global audience. When you're writing on the same thing, same subject, same topic, or same, gathering the same facts, but while presenting, I have to keep in mind about my specific audience. Thank you.
So that has brought me to the end of the first part of this deliberation where it was everything is open. Next half an hour, less than that actually, will be specific to domains. So all the domains which you have, which you are working in your life, the questions will be you only on that, not to be passed on the others. Let's start with you, Rasmi. And it's about your book. The book, The Whistles of Sifung, Tales from Assam's Boro Heartland. Delves into the Boro culture. How challenging was it to blend folklore with contemporary issues without diluting either? Do you think such storytelling is effective in educating a larger audience about indigenous culture, especially those unfamiliar with the Boro community? Is it a googly? No.
Can I please get it once more?
I'm talking about your book, which delves into Boro culture, which is one of the largest ethnic group of the region. How challenging was it to blend folklore with the contemporary issues without diluting either? Do you think such storytelling is effective in educating a larger audience about indigenous cultures, especially those unfamiliar with the Boro community?
Thank you. Yeah, yes, first of all, and most importantly, it was what I wanted to write. And secondly, it was how it would affect people. One thing is true that when we write, when we see documents and when we see, about any ethnic tribe in a very academic thesis kind of piece, I think it doesn't reach out. It stays within the academic portal. But when you write it in the form of a story, when you have characters there, when you have a grandfather saying something, when you have a ghost coming out and doing all kinds of mischief, and you have the name for that ghost, I think that reaches out more. I am saying that because I'm not into academics. And I'm sorry, this is so much out of the question, but I have done my graduation in economics and I have done my master's in human resource management, but I am a mother. So I think storytelling comes automatically to me, and which is why I did not look into the fact how academic things stay within the academic, and a whole lot of wonderful and amazing and informative research papers have sat within the academic portals, and they have failed to reach out to the common people. But the moment it is converted into a story, I think a whole lot of people are now asking me from abroad, from elsewhere, Rashmi, tell us about the sifung, tell us about the kam. The kam is the long drum among us. So now I get to hear of all of this, which means the academics have always been there, yes, very helpful in educating people, educating other communities, like we have drawn and taken inspiration from other people. But I think when it comes to reaching out to people, it is always a storytelling. History is storytelling, political science is storytelling. I think there is just a different kind of narrative to it. And I think it is very silly, but I think even math is storytelling. Because, what do you get 2 plus 2? You get 4. Isn't it like this? What did Ram and Shyam go out and do? They went out and played. So it is like, what is 2 plus 2? 2 plus 2 is 4. So math is also a kind of storytelling. I feel because I am a storyteller. And this precisely is the impact, and contemporary, like you said, contemporary and folk, that blending comes, I think, very automatically because, when you're telling a story, it just happens if you're passionate about it. I don't put any specific effort into my storytelling. So it just happens, and yes, afterwards, when the whole thing is completed, when I go through the first draft, then I realize, okay, oh my God, it has turned out to be like this. This is wonderful. So that is the impact, and because folks sometimes does not really cater to the young generation. They think, oh my God, forget it, it's ancient. But when you blend it, when the blending comes automatically, maybe sometimes, yes, they also sit up and say, okay, Rashmi, tell us about what happened here. Tell us about that witch. Tell us about this legend. So they're sitting up and taking note. I think that is the effect. Yes, the blend of folk and contemporary does have a solid effect, and people are longing for their roots and for their heritage and tradition now, through storytelling.
Thank you, Rasmi. Now let's go to Modhu. And my question to Modhu is about your multidisciplinary approach. Like, as a founder of the Ajanta Ellora Arts Residency, how do you balance cultural preservation with contemporary artistic expression in your work? And how do you ensure that traditional narrative are not lost in the fusion with the modern forms of art and literature?
Though I did say that I write for myself, I mean, I think there's a quote which I don't want to misput to somebody else. But it says that breathes there a bard who isn't moved when he knows his poetry is understood. And I think it's Hughes or somebody, but yeah, somewhere around there. But so by the grace of the universe, I think what has happened is my poetry has traveled. Like, let's say, so when you say that the things, I'm coming to the point of your point that how do I keep our traditional things and all that into, and decall is a huge...
Also, you have the Ajanta Ellora residency.
Yeah, I have the Ajanta Ellora residency as well, for which I set up for, especially for international artists to come and see how, because I'm not a great fan of festivals, not that I don't enjoy sitting and having a good time with friends and meet new people, but at the same time, yeah, so for me, what means more is, the best thing you can buy an artist is leisure. And when you buy that leisure for artists, they sit and think, because I have been in residencies paid for where I don't have to put a word to the paper and I'll be paid or be a part of that residency. So I've been graced by the universe. And I think I really want to create that kind of space for other people and artists. And especially for me, the word avant-garde has an important sense, because how do I push the envelope beyond the space it already is? Like recently I was in Scotland for the Charles Wallace Fellow, and I created, they told me, so you're a poet, you're going to do a piece of writing. I said, no. What do you want to do? I see there's a huge garden and a slope, and you have this blue boy kind of sculpture. I want to make a huge ice rangoli. And I was like, matlab, tum poet ho and you're going to make a huge ice rangoli. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make a huge ice rangoli, giving credit to thousands of women who make rangoli in India. I sourced ice from a local bar without buying a share of, again, because you're talking of ecology, because I wanted to show the transience of life. Like you make a rangoli with eyes, a huge, and then I made the rangoli like Shiva and Shakti, like the whole circle. And they said, this is Star of David. I said, no, I'm reclaiming it back, because there is enough appropriation of Indian iconography and mythologies already in the globalized world. So I'm like, here I'm claiming it back and saying that this is the Shiva and Shakti triad. And because in the middle, it's like that's the gender, our gender thing, like the whole conglomeration of free-flowing gender between male and female. So I'm like, this is that Baraf ka Rangoli. And so I try to, like, constantly, if you see, so these are the ways, I'm going to take a minute or so, because I've been hurrying through my answers and I don't want to, and because there are some young people. So the idea that when you take up an art form, how far I going to go is my huge question every single day. What new? What can I move to? So I kind of, the surrealist, the Dada, these are my inspirations. Marshall Duchamp is like my God. So I'm like, because see, he questioned putting a toilet ulta and saying that yeh fountain hai, yellow. And like, it's a question, what is, and so for me, I'll never be able to define poetry. And that is what will keep me going. So imagine, this is called the Dibang Dam Project. You don't have to be able to read it. It's just a dark patch on a poetry book. Yeah, okay. It's a dark patch on a poetry book. So I wrote a poem on Dibang Valley. It's called the Dibang Dam Project, you know, for the reason, because there'll be a dam. So I wrote with a pencil, I take a sheet of white paper, I write a poem on Dibang, I erase it carefully with my eraser, and then I dip it in water and take a picture and write here on that the beautiful habitat of Dibang Valley, home to tigers, Mishmi takins, leopards, bears, squirrels, and musk deers, has been carefully erased and submerged like this poem.
Beautiful.
So how far are you, because I don't want to be doing what others before me has done as poet. Wo kar liye na, Bombay School of Poets are there, Jeet and everybody who I look up to, Ranjit Hoskote, all senior colleagues, friends. Ho gaya, wo jo kiya uska zindagi uska, mera zindagi. So yeah. So I'm there.
You are an interesting person. I would love to meet you again. Good. Still out of track.
One line to participate. Just for information, probably some of you know, 3.20 lakh trees will be felled in this Dibang Valley project to generate power, which probably Northeast doesn't need.
See. Yeah, I don't want to go to jail because I have a 5-year-old now. I used to do all that in sitting in Jantar Mantar long back. So I'm saying it through poetry very safely. And so here your journalist Saab is there and he's going to explain that whole thing. Yeah.
Anyway, now goes to actually my own tribe, the journalism, my Sushanta. This question you can ask to me also, I can ask you also, because the same question we keep on getting. You have worked extensively with both local and national media. Do you think that the Northeastern identity is often misrepresented or oversimplified in the mainstream media?
Yeah, I think it's not just about Northeast. Probably, I think this myth needs to be demolished.
Because we also do the same thing with Jammu and Kashmir.
Because now if you read local newspapers in Assam, you will not get the idea of entire Northeast as a whole.
What idea
You'll get
about
about
Northeast?
Assam
Idea of
only.
Assam is not there.
Yeah, even Assam is
Show
not
me how
there.
many representatives
So-
we have from in the Barak Valley, in Silsor, Hailakandi, Karimganj. We don't have any representative there.
I think we need to come out of that narrative. I mean, yes, the question of that space, I felt constraints of space when working for the national dailies, because when space is limited, because I'm basically a print journalist, so when space is limited, then you don't get enough opportunity to explain the complexities that we all discuss from the very beginning of the session. So unless because see, more than 400 language speakers. I am not calling it a dialect. It's a language. For every single community, it's a language. 400 language speakers. And then the food, culture, everything is different, distinct. You have, when you talk about bamboo shoot as a delicacy, so there are different form of eating bamboo shoot in Northeast. Karbis will celebrate it. There is a festival called Han Up Ahikiti in Karbi Anglong. They will celebrate the bamboo delicacy of eating with pork for months, just not one day. No, that's a different formats of eating bamboo shoot. Some people even so when you have to write for a national audience, then you have to keep in mind that you are not distorting the region and the facts. No? So even we are talking about, say, the weaving, attires, no, there are we put on, okay, this is a Naga jacket. Okay, this is a Naga jacket, but then this Naga jacket sometimes, whether this Naga jacket is worn by the male or a female. This is a stole I'm wearing, and there is a motif in it, a Karbi motif, say. But as a male, I'm not supposed to wear this stole. It is to be worn by women. So all these details, you need space. But thankfully, the emergence of the digital media, now we have no problem. Now Northeast should not complain about our stories not being told by the metropolitan media or the media, so-called the mainstream media, within quotes, no? Because we need to tell our own stories. Nobody is stopping us. Technology is with us. The space is with us. We can do storytelling in all format: text, video, images, photo essays, audio, everything. So I think that probably that debate is more or less now settled. Now we can, if somebody is not getting about the Northeast news and all, and it's purely about their business policy, nothing else. But otherwise, as a Northeast...
No, you have to accept it also, because ultimately space, it's a business.
Yeah.
And it's not, you cannot complain also, because if you want to know the news, you have a local content, you see it, you have the digital world.
Yes, so digital world, you can now reach out to everyone, or every nook and corner of the world.
Yes. To Mosumi, so finally I'm coming to you. You have been so happy, this is your domain. She has been asking me, keep it to my domain. This is your thing now. As an art critic and cultural tourist, how do you see the traditional art forms from the Northeast being preserved or adopted in the modern age? Are we witnessing the dilution of indigenous art due to external influence, or is there a growing movement towards cultural pride and preservation?
First of all, I'm not a cultural theorist, huh? But yes, I have been engaged with this visual art for last 2 decades. And this is an extremely complex question, because when you talk about Northeast, there's so many indigenous groups,
Come on, you're sitting in front of such an audience, you have to be asked a complex question.
Yes. So each community have their traditional, art traditions and all. But we should know that there was a rupture when colonization happened. Most of the traditional art form got almost dwindled. To give just an example from Assam, manuscript painting, traditional art form, which was thriving in hotros and monasteries, got almost defunct. But interestingly, I just put it in a very, briefly, to put it very briefly, two interesting things had happened because of colonization. A new expression came up, thanks to British academic realism, schools were open. So new contemporary art, which we call, or modern art discourse came up, where the artists adopted the medium so nicely, so interestingly, that they started experimenting, bringing in new reinterpretation, new reimagination of the traditional art form at one strand. At another strand, it got dwindled, but there are other people recently, thanks to the renewed interest in their ethnic identity, or for many other reasons, they have again tried to reclaim it, learn it. Of course, technology plays a big havoc there. We cannot think of the pure and authentic art form that used to be there a century back. It is not possible. We cannot now make art with Hengul and Haital because of the, you know what happens in the, when you talk about the ecology and all this, Hengul Haital is now dream, you can only dream of. But yes, you have to take care of the inorganic or other, chemical, though it is not suggestible, but you have to use it. There are a lot of debates around it. But that thing, one thing that I'm very happy to see is young generation across Northeast, because I keep roaming, moving around Northeast for my research, or because I have lots of artist friends, I see they are reinterpreting myth, folklore, and they are bringing contemporary issues. Say, for instance, Devananda Olu, who is from the Singpho community, he uses myth and beautiful narratives, folk narratives, in his artwork to talk about. He has a series called Patkai series. He talks about a lot of socio-political issues. Patkai becomes the metaphor. Then we have this Karbi young artist called Leonard Way, who is thinking, I forgot the, talking to my tradition, conversing with my tradition. So you could see a young boy looking at, and there are many hands trying to pulling him here and there. So he talks about the dilemma also. And then you have Punyo Chovin from, I'm like at loss whom to mention, but things that are coming to my mind, I'm saying. Punyo Chovin from Arunachal Pradesh, Apatani tribe, he is using avant-gardist methodology and then approaches, postmodernist approaches to bring in this question of marginalization. And he used calendar art forms, interesting art form. He uses like the big icons of Indian struggle movement. He will make one calendar, and in between he will put Rani Agandalu or anybody from Northeast. So he is doing a kind of political intervention. So many things are happening. And then another thing, now I'll go on here. Control of me because you stop me, otherwise I get carried away.
Yeah.
But
I'll give you another minute.
Huh? Yes, please give me, because I want to talk about Temsu Yangar Long Kumar. Without speaking about Long Kumar, I think our talk...
It will be wrong.
Yes. Long Kumar is a very talented artist. He's a friend. He was based in London. And what he has done on 2007, he did a wonderful installation called Cultural Discourse, where he erected a structure, traditional Naga structure with murung, handmade it, just in front of the British Parliament. And he talks about this whole decolonization, colonial history, migration, entire history of Nagaland, Northeast. And then he did a portrait of a dance. So what he did, he in a loop, put in video, a loop, all the dances of Naga dances, then asked them to take, when the spectators came, they also started dancing. So there was a kind of interaction. And they were making a new portrait of Naga dance. Very beautiful and very poignant, actually, the title. And there were so many series. So actually, I'm so happy that we are talking about the visual artist maybe in a forum like this. We talk about literature a lot. We are pampered a lot. I'm happy not to talk about my literary works today, but to talk about my artist friend from Northeast who are contributing so much. But I don't know why, because we are too much into dance, music. Of course, they are also greater. But they always feel like little, marginalized visual artists. So I take this opportunity to talk about them. They are using traditional art form as a means of new creation, as a means of intervention, transgression, and so many other things. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that we are not doing enough to preserve the traditional art form. We do not have a huge, of course Meghalaya has, I think, but other states we do not, I mean Assam also. We should have a big museum for the art and artifacts. Of course, there are policies for, enhancement of the bamboo craft and all this. I'm not going into that. But traditional art form, what about the Hira potters? Or forget about visual art, what about the Kamrupia Dhulia? Whenever there is a Bihu function, why Kamrupia Dhulia comes in the end? Why they have to borrow their costume from others? Why they are paid so meager, whereas a celebrity is paid lakhs? Unless we give the same acknowledgement, same respect to a contemporary singer who might be contributing with great respect, but at the same time a Kamrupia Dhulia or a je bonai Putola Nasor Hilpik, Homane jodi ami sthan nidu monsot, titia hole ami asolote eta birat onyay kora hoy ase. Ki ko?
You really like to answer, and then I'm coming to the last. Thank you.
Sorry for taking.
No. I'm coming to the last panelist. Dr. Kericho, you have been instrumental in revitalizing the Naga textile through your storytelling, especially the Mekhala Mama, which is damn popular. How do you balance the historical significance of these textiles with modern reinterpretations, ensuring that their cultural importance isn't overshadowed by the commercialization?
That's such an interesting question. I think particularly when it comes to Naga textiles, the historical significance is almost nil because we've lost so much of it, Trying to, in the process of this Instagram account, I have researched the significance of so many different textiles from different tribes. And two challenges that I face is one, often it's just silence. And second, if there's silence.
Okay.
There's silence because nobody knows, or people have forgotten, or the ones who know don't really remember. One. But the second is also, they have to filter it through a sort of modern Christianized lens. And that brings on, I think, the more dangerous kind of silence, which is a willful silence, which is a refusal to speak about the significance of certain things. Very interesting. I know we were talking about how we're not going to do anecdotes, but at a recent event, I chose to wear a Mao tribe sapusa, which is a one side shawl sort of upper body covering. And when I was researching that, I saw in the photos that the girls who were wearing this, they all had a black thread band around their forehead. And it looks very nice. So I asked my Mao friends, can anyone wear this? And one of them replied back as a forward. So you know how on WhatsApp, if it's a forward, it shows? So clearly she had asked some elder woman, and that reply was forwarded to me. And it said, only unmarried girls and women who have left their husbands can wear this.
Girls and those who
women who have left their husbands can wear this. Now, this is in relation to, a recent academic paper that I had done about the fluid nature of patriarchies, traditional patriarchies. And one of the sort of most significant sites of analysis for me is the institution of marriage, which after missionization became, sort of that Victorian Christian idea of marriage as being sacrosanct, as being forever till death do us part, and of course the stigma and the onus of any break of marriage being completely on the shoulders of the woman, versus all the archival research and oral historic work that I've done across different Naga tribes, where we see traditional marriages are much more fluid, give greater agency to the woman, and the stigma assigned to a woman for leaving a marriage is almost nil. And to have that very simple WhatsApp message that just simply said, women who have left their husbands can wear it again. You're back on the market. I thought, my God, So you have put yourself back in the market again, by the way. You know, so it's your choice. You know, it's a signal saying, look, you know, I've left my whoever it was, and you know, I'm ready to be courted again. You know, isn't that wonderful? So in that process, I think so. What I'm trying to say is the historical significance of our textiles is literally almost archaeological. You know, digging, and you know, sort of trying to, you know, create meaning and narratives from little fragments of, you know, sometimes you think it's a tooth for, you know, 2 months, and then later on somebody says something and you realize it's just a fragment of glass or something, you know. But contemporary narratives, I think it's so interesting when you work with textiles, or with anything actually, is meanings. I think artifacts, cultural artifacts don't have meanings that are innate to them. It's how we want to see the meanings. You know, so now we make a big fuss about prestige cloths. So many of you, if you're familiar with Naga textiles, the textiles that come to your mind are mostly prestige cloths. So the Ao warrior shawl, it's actually a prestige cloth, meaning that not every Ao person could wear it. Now the tribe has relaxed so that most men wear it. Young boys will wear, you know, the iconic Ao warrior shawl, even if they've not gone to war, they haven't taken heads, etc. So it's become representative of a more pan-tribal identity. But traditionally, these were prestige cloths. One thing that is very interesting is in that process, we have become so fascinated and enamored by the idea of prestige that we've forgotten we have other common cloths, very unremarkable plain cloths that the rest of the people, and by that standards, you know, sort of most of our forefathers and foremothers wore. So for me, and this is very specifically why I chose to wear this. You know, I didn't know you were going to ask this question. But very specifically why I chose to wear this. Because this is actually the real Naga shawl. And if you had gone to Nagaland in the past, in the time of, you know, as we Nagas love to say, in time immemorial. This is our
famous line.
Is this a favorite phrase in Assam also?
Discourse, yeah.
And also I think this is something to do with, you know, colonial writing.
Immemorial.
Time immemorial. But if you had gone to any Naga village in time immemorial, you would not have seen Nagas in the way that you all imagine our tourism and Hornbill Festival production of Nagas, in colorful shawls. You would have seen most of us wearing this. You would have seen a village full of plainly clad people. You know, and even the what we call our skirt, men would have had full cloths, body cloths. The shawl would have served to cover most of their bodies. So that's one of the reasons why I don't agree with using shawl as the term, because shawl refers to only upper body.
What is the name of this?
This is a modern, the size is reduced to a stole, right? But for men, the shawl, the English word we use shawl, would more or less be a body cloth, because it would extend, it would cover the whole body. It would serve that function. Now women would use their yarn, which they grew and they spun themselves, they would use it for the men, and then they would use it for the children. And so women made themselves garments with whatever they had left. So when we talk about the Naga wraparound, actually if you see, it's wrapping all the way now, but most of the older textiles actually just somehow barely meet. They're short and they barely meet, because that is how much yarn they had left to make garments for themselves. So I don't know if I've answered your question. When I start talking about textiles, I get carried away. But, you know, I think the process of this is also to unearth, like I said, subaltern histories, you know, to unearth sort of more common plebeian sort of histories that cloths tell, as opposed to focusing on Hornbill, you know, Government of Nagaland trademark version of Nagas, you know, come see us all in very colorful array, which really would not have been the case, yeah.
Thank you very much, and this has actually brought in the end of the whole thing, and then thankfully organizers will be happy that I could finish and right and the bang on time, because a television journalist, I know you have the question of timing. I would love still have to give 30 seconds to each of you to give a concluding remark, starting, but keep it to 30 seconds. Television time on.
Yes, I'm going to
Anything.
take this
30
advantage.
seconds, anyway, this 30 seconds is no questions, just a wrap around of this particular conclave, seminar, whatever thing. Your time starts now.
Because we started with Northeast Literature Arts, and I want to really take my friend Thier's idea forward, and also your idea of textile, and here goes the poem. If anybody is from outside the region, probably go to Hualkutsi and see a person, see a woman weave, or a man weave, or whoever is weaving. It's very meditative. And the poem goes out to my mother-in-law, Poga Karso from Galo tribe. This poem is called The Gala, which is the wrap around the waist she's talking about. And the last line, just says, yet none of her children, not yet none of her daughters. So there's your gender there. Gala. The wrap and weft of stories knit life and lore tightly. Automated looms loom, the dust on our hands draw debt, and dullness takes over. The assembly lines kill culture. Societies now come in same clothes. She meditates like a mountain, one end of the loom tied to the window, an antelope of light leaps. One end of the loom tied to the window, an antelope of light leaps looking for a companion. The other end is tied to her spine. Her nerves run through the universe. There are no permanent fixtures. The voice of her fabric is untamed. Her dye don't bleed. She bleeds love for daughters, brocades of rain, fashion, decorative dashes, peacock plumes, and lakes of lilacs at that drowned man and his machines. Her colors are infinite. Her needles converse in codes, migrate centuries before she brings them home. Her motives are faceless revolutions. No pamphlets are served, no slogans raised, yet her women blossom at the dance of her tribes like wild orchids. She owns no war, stitches boundaries, and harvests the sun on her loom, yet none of her children weave a gala.
Thank you, Raghu. While I appreciate you, but I request all of you to stick to this 30-second line.
So ultimately, I think whether it's our weaving, whether it's our visual art, our literature, or our songs, it's all a story. And the story is about ourselves. We are telling our stories, and if we are listening to the stories, others have to tell us. This is all about storytelling in whatever form. Thank you, and the exploration continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasmi. Mosami.
Only 30 seconds. What do I say? Wish I was a poet, but then I also write. So last two lines from a story called Mock Drill that I wrote. Can I read it in Assamese or I'll say in English?
It's free to do it.
Okay, for the people who have come from outside. He at time drives the car, sits in the laptop and does all the calculations. He talks to the world and does everything. He goes to MACD and do blah, blah, blah. I'm minimizing it. But when the night descends, he goes to bed, and then slowly he goes to the forest and he sees the fire. He looks at the fire. He starts dancing around it. And he listens to that lullaby that comes from far away, and listening to that lullaby, he goes to sleep. So that's what we have come, but that rootedness, identity, whatever, it drives us. So, but at the same time, we all belong. I feel this is a mosaic. I'm Assamese, but not only Assamese, I'm Karbi, I'm Bodo, everything. I'm each part of India, Assam, Northeast. And then ultimately, I go to sleep with my grandma's lullaby only.
Susanta?
For me, Northeast is a bundle of paradoxes. But we cannot face away the complexities. There is no shortcut. We have to take time. We have to need to understand. And then we write about it. Thank you.
Great. So it's on, probably.
Hello, yeah. I will read one of my poems as well to end. This is called Stranger. And having traveled all over the world, you return home to roam in forests filled with trees whose names you do not know. And I think, the topic of this entire panel discussion, and I think our collective project, is how to turn these forests into friends again, how to turn these forests into familiar, to family. Because actually, that was our past. We've, I think, through colonization, and I'm so sorry, ELTAI, but through the language. I just noticed this because I recently went to a beautiful mountain, Kapamotsa in Nagaland, and I went with somebody from the village, and I'd say, what is the name of this flower? What is the name of this? And you know what he would say? He apologized. He was saying, I'm so sorry. I don't know what it's called in English, and I only know what it's called in my language. And it makes me a little emotional, but that is speech. I don't know how to speak in that language anymore.
Thank you very much. It's quite a tough one for me, coming from a political background, handling this kind of a subject with this galaxy of people with diverse interests. Hopefully, we could give you something. Yes, we are asserting in all possible way, from textile to technology to visual art. The story is different. And yes, we are here. Thank you very much to everybody. And before we leave, I request a photograph of us. That's very important. And not only important from the official photographer, but by somebody who can give the photograph to us. That's why I need Stuti to take the picture. Otherwise, this photo will never come.